Welcome to Threads of Truth, the podcast where real-life mysteries meet internet speculation. Today's episode takes us across Australia on a road trip like no other one that began with silence, spiraled into panic, and ended with a family fractured and confused. You're about to hear about a case so utterly bizarre it captivated an entire nation, sparking, a huge amount of media reports and online theories that people are still talking about years later. We're talking about 5 adults, a whole family, seemed totally normal, who one morning simply they just fled their home. No plan, no phones, no money, left basically everything behind. And this wasn't a kidnapping. It wasn't a robbery, nothing like that. Not a crime in any conventional sense. Instead, it seems it was a mass disappearance driven by something far more internal, something that really makes you question human psychology. The chilling question that has hung over this story ever since is, was this a shared delusion, a collective mental break that spread like wildfire within the family? Or was there something much more elusive? Some hidden trigger we still don't understand at play.
What's truly fascinating and frankly deeply unsettling about the Tromp family story is how it forces us to confront the profound fragility of the human mind. Under extreme stress, maybe unseen stress, or perhaps influenced by factors we still don't fully get, reality can completely lose its grip, especially when that distorted reality is shared within an isolated group, like a family. It prompts us to consider how quickly our fundamental understanding of the world, our very perceptions, can be upended, not just for one person, but for a whole family unit. It's a stark reminder that even the most seemingly stable lives can conceal vulnerabilities that, when triggered, can lead to truly shocking outcomes.
Okay, let's unpack this unsettling story. Let's try and meticulously walk through the events that became known across Australia as the Tromp family road trip. And this isn't just a timeline of facts. It feels more like a journey into the inexplicable, where every single step seems to defy logical explanation. Before we delve into the chronology of their disappearance, let's first properly meet the family at the heart of this enigma. We have Mark Tromp and Jacoba Tromp, the parents, and their 3 adult children, Rihanna, who was 29 at the time, Mitchell, 25, and Ella, who was 22. And from all external appearances, they really were a seemingly ordinary Australian family, living a quiet life that, on the surface at least, appeared entirely stable and well-adjusted.
And that stability is exactly what makes their story so jarring. This wasn't a family with a known history of mental illness that anyone in their community was aware of, not at all. Nor did they come from some troubled background. Quite the opposite, actually. They ran a highly successful red currant farm in Sylvan, Victoria. By all accounts, they were well-respected members of their community, active, engaged, seemingly thriving. Their lives before that Monday, August 29, 2016, seemed utterly ordinary, almost mundane even. And this just deepens the mystery of what followed because it challenges our assumptions about who might be susceptible to such a profound break with reality. They weren't on the fringes, they were integrated, which makes their sudden, inexplicable unraveling all the more unsettling to think about.
Right. This very stability, this apparent normalcy, makes their sudden flight, their abrupt and totally uncharacteristic departure, all the more jarring for everyone who knew them and for us looking back. So let's carefully trace the timeline of what became known as the Tromp family road trip. You'll quickly understand why this bizarre journey grabbed an entire nation's attention and, frankly, why it's still discussed years later. The morning of Monday, August 29th, 2016, that was the starting point of this strange and, honestly, terrifying journey. The Tromp family abruptly left their home in Sylvan. They piled into their gray Peugeot station wagon, but it wasn't just an early start to a holiday. The way they left immediately signaled something was profoundly wrong, like a sense of extreme urgency and fear had just gripped the whole family.
Indeed. The crucial details of their departure, they instantly signaled extreme, pervasive paranoia. They left behind their phones, all of them, their bank cards, their passports.
Everything.
Pretty much. And the house, left unlocked, filled with paperwork, all the normal stuff of daily life. This suggests a deeply ingrained belief that these items, or maybe the home itself, could somehow be used to track them, or that they were in immediate, tangible danger that required just total disengagement from their lives, almost wiping the slate clean. And the fact they only took a significant amount of cash, no spare clothes, no food, no supplies for a trip of unknown length, it paints a vivid picture of their distorted perception, a complete abandonment of logical preparation in favor of an urgent flight from some perceived unseen threat. That detail alone tells us volumes about the level of panic circulating in that household.
And as they headed north, out of Victoria and into New South Wales, the paranoia didn't just linger, it escalated. It seemed to infect the entire family in the car. Mitchell, the son, he later recalled being forced by his parents to throw his phone out the car window. Can you imagine that? The sheer terror or confusion, being told by your parents, your figures of safety, to ditch your connection to the outside world because they believe it's being used to track them, to spy on them. It really speaks to an almost like a cult-like adherence to a single terrifying belief.
That act, forcing Mitchell to destroy his phone, it's a powerful initial indicator of a shared delusional state. What psychiatrists sometimes call folie à deux, or in a family context, folie à famille. It demonstrates how quickly a collective fear, a delusion, can manifest in completely irrational yet unified actions, dictating behavior across the whole family unit. It shows the power of the perceived threat, however unfounded, and the cohesive, almost magnetic adoption of that belief by the group, well, initially anyway. Mitchell's compliance, even if under duress, it speaks volumes about the immediate psychological environment inside that car. An echo chamber where external reality was rapidly being replaced by an internal, terrifying narrative.
By Tuesday, August 30th, just one day into this bizarre, frantic road trip, Mitchell had had enough. Somewhere near Bathurst, in New South Wales, the intensity of the paranoia, the sheer irrationality of it all, it finally broke through for him. The constant fear, the lack of any clear destination, the bizarre demands. It just became too much. So he made the pivotal decision to leave the group. He separated himself from the escalating delusion and took a bus back home to Sylvan, probably hoping to find some sense of normalcy, or at least safety.
Mitchell's departure is a critical turning point in the psychological unraveling of the family. Absolutely. He was the first to physically separate himself from the immediate, intense, and frankly suffocating influence of his parents' delusion. In psychological terms, particularly thinking about shared psychosis, this physical separation often allows the individual to sort of break the shared belief, to regain a more grounded, objective perspective. It suggests that while he was initially caught in the delusion's grip, that distance allowed his own rationality to reassert itself. His return signifies the first significant crack in the family's shared reality. It shows the delusion, while powerful, wasn't entirely immutable, at least not for him.
Right. Meanwhile, the remaining family members, Mark, Jacoba, Rihanna, and Ella, they continue their journey, pushing further north to Jenolan Caves, New South Wales. But the cohesion was already fracturing, just as Mitchell's departure suggested it might. After what was described as a heated argument, Rihanna and Ella also decided to leave their parents. They abandoned the car and struck out on their own. So the family unit was just rapidly disintegrating, literally scattering across the vast Australian landscape, and the unraveling continued. Rihanna was later found by a stranger in what was described as a complete catatonic state in the back of a utility truck, a ute, as they'd say, which is obviously extremely concerning, a truly harrowing symptom of severe psychological distress. She was immediately taken to the hospital.
And that catatonic state, it isn't just being dazed or confused. It's a profound mental shutdown. Imagine being awake, but utterly unresponsive, lost within your own mind, unable to communicate or interact. That's the reality of catatonia. It's a severe psychiatric symptom, often linked to things like schizophrenia or severe depression. But in this context, it speaks to an overwhelming psychological trauma. It rendered Rihanna almost completely unresponsive, detached from her surroundings, a direct result of the extreme, shared paranoia and the chaotic, disorienting road trip she'd endured. It's a stark indicator of the immense psychological pressure she must have been under.
The family's increasingly strange journey, unsurprisingly, soon drew official attention. By Wednesday, August 31st, just 2 days after they first left, Ella and Mitchell arrived back at the family farm in Sylvan, only to find police already there investigating. The authorities were already onto it, though maybe unknowingly at first, alerted by a growing sense of concern.
This police presence, yes, it was initiated because Rihanna and Ella, despite their own erratic behavior during the trip, they had actually reported their parents missing earlier, which is a critical nuance, isn't it? Even amidst their own profound disorientation, they still recognized a level of distress and concern for Mark and Jacoba's well-being. It indicates the complex and often contradictory nature of these shared delusional states, where pockets of concern, maybe a grasp of external reality, can still exist amidst profound personal disorientation. It really highlights the human element amidst the psychiatric mystery.
Later that same day, the family's abandoned gray Peugeot was found, hundreds of kilometers away in Wangaratta, Victoria. Police quickly spotted Mark Tromp nearby, but instead of approaching them for help or relief or explanation, he immediately fled. on foot into a nearby park. This action just intensified the mystery. It was a clear indication of his continued, perhaps even deepened, state of paranoia. He was still convinced of some unseen threat, making contact with authorities seemed impossible to him.
At this point, you've got authorities dealing with an increasingly perplexing situation, really baffling. You have a family scattered across hundreds of kilometers, exhibiting bizarre, escalating behavior, from ditching phones and abandoning a business, to catatonia, to actively fleeing from police, and absolutely no clear reason or explanation for any of it. It was an incredibly confusing and concerning situation for everyone involved, a true head-scratcher for law enforcement who usually deal with more straightforward criminal cases. The absence of a clear motive, the lack of a traditional crime, the sheer irrationality, it made it uniquely challenging, turning a missing persons case into a profound psychological puzzle for the authorities.
The search pressed on as the full scope of the family's dispersal became tragically clear. On Thursday, September 1st, Jacoba, the mother, she was found in Yass, New South Wales. She too was hospitalized for what were described as stress-related health concerns, clearly suffering from the psychological toll of the whole ordeal. She was later transferred to Goulburn Hospital, which is where Rihanna was also being treated. So bringing two of the family members back into proximity at least, albeit under medical care. Finally, after days of agonizing uncertainty for relatives and, frankly, the whole nation watching, on Saturday, September 3rd, Mark Tromp was located near the Wangaratta airport. He was taken into police custody, reported to be in good health physically, which was a relief, of course. However, his mental state was clearly still fragile. He was later released not into his own care, but into the care of family members, rather than being able to just resume his normal life immediately, which really underscores the lingering psychological impact.
So, within a single week, from that abrupt, inexplicable departure on August 29th to Mark's discovery on September 3rd, all 5 members of the Trump family were located alive. But, and this is the key point, they were profoundly disoriented, scattered across vast distances, and clearly suffering from the psychological toll of their strange journey. This concluded one of Australia's most baffling collective disappearances, not with a neat resolution, but with a lingering sense of unease and a multitude of unanswered questions that continued to haunt the public. The immediate crisis was over, but the underlying mystery, the why, had really only just begun.
And the most frustrating aspect for many, including those who follow the case so closely through the media, is the family's subsequent refusal or maybe inability to give a clear, comprehensive explanation for their behavior after these traumatic events. They largely retreated from public view, which is completely understandable, asking for privacy, but it left a significant void where answers should have been. And this silence has really fueled much of the ongoing speculation.
Mitchell, the son, the one who first distanced himself and returned to a more grounded reality, he did offer a limited comment, which gives us a small, tantalizing hint. He told reporters he'd never seen anything like it and that it was a buildup of different, normal, everyday events that eventually just got to his parents.
Mm-hmm.
This offers a small hint that perhaps underlying stressors, the common everyday pressures of life, running a business, financial anxieties, maybe even long-term emotional strain combined with some unknown trigger or psychological vulnerability, led to this extreme and profoundly abnormal reaction. It suggests that what happened wasn't just a sudden snap, but possibly the culmination of simmering anxieties that reached a breaking point, manifesting as the shared break from reality.
What's truly remarkable about this case, and what really set it apart from typical news headlines, is that police investigations ultimately confirmed there was zero evidence of anyone following the family. No real-world threat whatsoever. There was no criminal activity. This wasn't a crime in the traditional sense. No perpetrator, no conventional victim. It was instead a profound psychological mystery, a self-generated crisis that unfolded in plain sight, baffling authorities and the public alike.
Oh, absolutely. The incident became a massive topic in Australian media, dominated headlines for days, widely discussed as an utterly strange and tragic event. And it highlights the public's intense fascination with cases that defy easy explanation, particularly when they involve seemingly normal people exhibiting such extreme, inexplicable behavior. It challenges our understanding of sanity, the pressures individuals and families can face, and in doing so, it holds a mirror up to our own vulnerabilities, doesn't it? This case captured the public imagination precisely because it was so out of the ordinary, yet so fundamentally human in its distress, leaving everyone wondering, could something like this happen to anyone?
With the official explanation so sparse, and the family understandably choosing to remain private, the Tromp family case became an instant viral sensation online. Just exploded. It captivated a global audience, sparking countless theories across social media platforms, Reddit, TikTok later on, and spilling into various online forums dedicated to unexplained phenomena. Everyone, it seemed, wanted to piece together what happened, to find that missing puzzle piece.
The internet, in these situations, it often acts as a kind of collective investigator, doesn't it? A vast, decentralized community attempting to fill the void of information. When official answers are limited, people look for patterns, for explanations, even if they're speculative or sometimes verge into outright conspiracy. This case is a prime example of how a local, intensely personal event can quickly escalate into an international obsession. Millions of armchair detectives trying to connect the dots, sifting through every available detail. The collective human desire for closure and understanding is incredibly powerful. And the internet provides an unprecedented platform for that quest, allowing theories to just proliferate and evolve at lightning speed. Sometimes with surprising traction, too.
Of all the theories that emerged, both from professionals who consciously weighed in and from the public's own attempts at explanation, the most widely accepted psychological explanation, certainly among mental health professionals, is that of shared psychosis, also known by its French terms folie à deux, madness for two, or more specifically in a family context like this, folie à famille, madness of the family. This theory really seemed to resonate with the specific escalating behaviors we saw throughout that road trip.
Right. It's a rare psychiatric syndrome where a delusional belief, or even a set of shared delusions, is transmitted from one person to another. It typically occurs within a close, often isolated relationship or group, precisely like a tightly bonded family unit. The theory here is that one family member, likely Mark or Jacoba, given their parental authority and those initial actions like forcing Mitchell to dish his phone, experienced a primary delusional episode. The other members, being in that high-stress, insular environment, then adopted or became convinced by the same delusion. And this doesn't happen through conscious persuasion. It's more like an unconscious emotional and psychological contagion within a highly bonded, vulnerable group. The boundaries of individual perception blur under the intense influence of the primary deluded individual, creating a shared, distorted reality that feels utterly real to those experiencing it. The familial bond, rather than offering protection, tragically becomes a conduit for the delusion to spread.
And you can really see how Mitchell's actions, his eventual break from the group, powerfully support this psychological explanation. It just fits, doesn't it? He was the first to physically distance himself, to literally escape the confines of that shared delusional environment in the car. And crucially, he was the first to break the delusion and return to a grounded reality, recognizing the sheer irrationality of their actions. It truly underscores the profound power of that shared, intense environment, that psychological echo chamber, and how escaping it can be the key to regaining one's individual grip on objective reality. His story is a testament to the influence of proximity and isolation in these cases.
Exactly. His break from the immediate, overwhelming influence is highly indicative of how these shared delusions often operate. When the external feedback loop, the constant reinforcement of the delusion by others within the tight-knit group, is broken, the individual's mind can begin to reevaluate and eventually reject the false reality. It's a powerful illustration of the social and psychological dynamics at play in such rare conditions. A case study, really, in how critical external perspective can be when an internal reality becomes profoundly skewed.
Beyond the more clinical psychological explanations, the internet, as it always does, generated a whole host of more speculative and, let's be honest, sometimes truly outlandish theories. It really became a playground for collective imagination, a space where people tried to impose some kind of order on the chaos.
One more fringe theory that surfaced quite prominently in online forums suggested environmental or chemical poisoning. The idea here was that the family might have been exposed to some toxic chemical or gas on their farm, maybe a pesticide, maybe even an unnoticed carbon monoxide leak that induced a shared delusional episode, affecting their cognition, maybe causing hallucinations.
By something external causing it.
Exactly. On Reddit, in particular, this theory sparked heated debate. Users pointed to the family's farm life, desperately seeking a tangible external culprit for what seemed like an internal crisis. This inherent human need for a logical external explanation, however unfounded, speaks volumes about our discomfort with purely psychological mysteries. It was a compelling narrative for those who struggle to grasp the idea of a self-generated mental break. However, it's crucial to reiterate, this theory has never been supported by any evidence. No proof from police investigations or medical reports. It remained purely speculative, a convenient but entirely unsubstantiated explanation.
We also saw quite a bit of speculation around cults or mind control. That popped up on platforms like Reddit and later TikTok. Some users questioned whether the family had encountered or were perhaps desperately escaping from some kind of secretive group. Given the sudden panic nature of their flight and that extreme paranoia about being tracked, it's an easy narrative to gravitate towards, isn't it? Connecting frantic, unexplained flight to notions of escaping external sinister forces, especially with that dramatic rejection of modern tech.
And tied into the family's background as successful farmers, some online theories focused on financial or government paranoia. These suggested that Mark may be under immense, unstated stress from running the family farm business, developed intense delusions about being tracked or watched by some shadowy financial or governmental entity. The theory then posits that the family, already in that shared high-stress environment, adopted these fears as their own, leading to their desperate flight. It attempts to ground the delusion in a more concrete, albeit still unproven, external stressor, making it feel slightly more relatable perhaps to the pressures of modern life. These theories often gain traction among communities already distrustful of institutions.
There was also a fascinating discussion, I remember seeing this on TikTok, about the symbolism of items left behind. Some creators pointed out how leaving behind phones, wallets, passports, it could be interpreted as a kind of cleansing ritual, or a deliberate severing of ties with the modern world. They suggested it wasn't just a panicked reaction, but perhaps a misguided, deliberate act, like a digital detox taken to an absolute extreme, signifying a conscious, albeit diluted, attempt to escape societal constraints or perceived surveillance. It's an interesting read, though purely interpretive, adding another layer to the mystery.
The overarching sentiment online, though, woven through nearly every theory, was that something happened before the trip. Something remained undisclosed. This idea that there's a missing piece of the puzzle, a secret trigger, a pivotal event that truly set off this chain reaction, it continues to fuel speculation. And the feeling that the complete truth about the Tromps has yet to emerge. People are naturally uncomfortable with an unsolved psychological riddle, aren't they? And the internet provides a space to continually seek that missing piece, however elusive it might be. This collective need for closure ensures the case remains a subject of ongoing, sometimes fervent, debate.
When we look at how this story was covered by traditional media, outlets like ABC News, the Sydney Morning Herald, The Guardian, they covered the case extensively, often with daily updates as the family members were located one by one. It was primetime news for days in Australia, a truly national obsession.
Yes, and while their reporting was generally factual, focusing on the search and the bizarre behaviors, it also clearly highlighted the public's intense fascination with the utterly bizarre nature of the family's actions. Sometimes the tone shifted between serious inquiry and a kind of, well, incredulous disbelief, almost bordering on morbid curiosity or even subtle humor about the sheer oddity of it all. Newscasters often adopted a bewildered tone, Headlines like, "Mystery Road Trip. Are the Tromps Australia's bizarrest family?" A tone that, while captivating, maybe inadvertently framed their severe mental distress as merely an oddity, rather than a profound health crisis. It potentially shifted the public narrative away from empathy towards pure fascination. It's a delicate balance when reporting on such unusual events, and the media's framing can significantly influence public perception of mental health crises.
When we explore this case in detail, as we had today, it becomes incredibly clear that the threads of truth here aren't found in a crime scene or a missing persons investigation in the traditional sense. Not really. Instead, the true enigma lies in the profound fragility and complex workings of the human mind itself. It's a psychological puzzle, a cautionary tale, and a testament to how deeply our perceptions can be altered.
This story compels us to ask, why would a seemingly normal family, with a stable life, a successful business, deep community ties, why would they suddenly lose all touch with reality, abandoning everything they knew? It serves as a stark, compelling reminder of how susceptible individuals, especially within tight-knit or isolated family units, can be to the insidious power of shared delusional disorders. It shows us that vulnerability isn't always obvious or outwardly visible. It can reside beneath the surface of seemingly ordinary, stable lives. The very closeness that often defines a strong family The emotional intensity of those bonds can, under certain pressures, tragically become a conduit for shared distress and delusion, blurring the lines between individual and collective reality.
One of the most intriguing aspects of the Tromp family case, and what really sets it apart from many mysteries we explore, is its very nature. There was no crime committed, no conventional victim in the legal sense, no perpetrator to apprehend. Yet despite this absence of traditional criminal elements, it became a captivating national mystery, dominating headlines and public discussion for weeks.
This absence of a criminal element fundamentally shifted public curiosity. It really did. Instead of focusing on justice or punishment, which is typical for a crime story, the questions revolved around understanding what caused this. How could something so bizarre and profound happen to an ordinary family? It moved the conversation from legal outcomes and culpability to the complex terrain of mental health, family dynamics, human psychology, making it compelling precisely because it defies typical mystery narratives. It forces us to grapple with the unknown, the unsettling aspects of the human condition, inviting us to look inward at the potential fragilities within ourselves and those around us. The mystery of the mind, not of malevolence.
So, if shared psychosis is indeed the leading theory, and it does make a lot of sense in this context, given the dramatic synchronized behaviors, what might have primed the Tromps for such a collective break from reality, what were the potential contributing factors that created this kind of psychological pressure cooker?
Well, we can certainly consider how isolation, prolonged stress, and even that digital disconnection might have played significant roles. Wanting a successful family farm, while rewarding, can be an incredibly demanding and isolating endeavor. That's well known. Farmers often work long hours. Their livelihoods depend on external factors like weather, volatile markets. Their social circles can, by necessity, be quite insular. This high-stress, often isolated environment, combined with their deliberate abandonment of their digital devices, phones, cards, passports, would have effectively cut them off from external information, from diverse perspectives, from any immediate connection to the grounding influences of modern life. This forced digital disconnection could have amplified any nascent delusions, removing any external reality checks and making them far more susceptible to a shared, however distorted reality within their self-contained group. The echo chamber effect within the family unit would have been almost absolute, allowing the delusion to fester and grow unchallenged.
Perhaps what makes the Tromp family's journey so enduringly compelling, so stubbornly fascinating for us, is the simple fact that the family never gave a clear, comprehensive public explanation for their behavior afterwards. They asked for privacy, largely retreated from the spotlight, leaving the questions just hanging in the air.
This lack of an ending, this absence of a definitive official statement from the family themselves, it leaves the door wide open for continued speculation and fascination. It absolutely does. It means there's no final word, no resolution from the people who lived it, which allows the mystery to persist indefinitely in the public consciousness, fueling endless theories, as we saw online. It also, however, respects the deeply personal and traumatic nature of what they experienced, and their inherent right to privacy in the aftermath of such a profoundly disorienting and public mental health crisis. We may never fully know the complete internal truth of what transpired, and perhaps that's how it should be, for their sake.
And ultimately, while not a criminal case, the Tromp family story is a tragic one. It really is. It shows us just how fragile a person's mental state can be, even those who seem perfectly normal and well-adjusted on the surface. And it powerfully illustrates how profoundly that fragility can ripple through and affect an entire family, creating a shared reality that is terrifyingly divorced from the truth, with lasting consequences. As we close out this compelling case, I leave you with this thought. Can a mystery still haunt us? Continue to puzzle and intrigue us, even when no crime has been committed? What does the Tromp family's bizarre road trip tell you about the hidden vulnerabilities that might exist even within the most seemingly normal lives? Thank you for joining us for this walk through the threads of truth in the Tromp family mystery. Next time on Threads of Truth, we explore the chilling silence between two sisters and how a literary vow of silence turned tragic. The strange life and death of Jennifer Gibbons, one of the silent twins,